Jet Set Radio.
23 years ago, Sega released Jet Set Radio, a game regarded as one of the greatest of all time, according to both me and Wikipedia, so you can't possibly dispute it. Its beautiful art style still looks stunning to this day, perfectly pairing with the game's soundtrack, featuring original compositions by Hideki Naganuma and contemporary songs from a whole host of different genres, capturing the style and anti-establishment themes of the millennium. And hey, the gameplay was also even pretty good, if at times a little hard and finicky. Intense, arcadey rollerblading action, perfect for short bursts of gameplay and replayability. 2 years later, they released Jet Set Radio Future, both a sequel to the first game and also a reboot because it's the same story but in the future. Taking everything that made the original great, Future reimagined the gameplay to have a stronger emphasis on tricks, platforming, and exploration, expanding both your moveset and also the type of insane landscapes the game expects you to navigate. A really awesome and cool feature added to this game is where it slows down all the time, because whatever genius at Sega decided that including Jet Set Radio Future, an arcadey 3D platformer, and Sega GT 2002, a racing sim, on the same disc was just a matchup that had to happen, also decided that they didn't need to sell it in a case. Nah, a little paper sleeve will surely be enough protection from wear, tear, and scratches, except, oh no! It turns out letting a disc scrape against a piece of paper for over 20 years is actually bad for it. Now, you could argue that I could have just bought my own CD case for the game and not left it to accumulate scratches for 2 decades, but yeah, I probably should have done that. Or just gotten Jet Set Radio Future on its own in the first place. I have literally never played GT 2002 in my life, and probably never will. It's just the game I have to go past on the menu to choose the one I actually want to play. Anyway, so Jet Set Radio was an amazing franchise. However much one can consider 2 games and a GBA port a franchise anyway. And so, obviously, because nothing good can ever happen in this world, Sega proceeded to never make another one. But hey, no need to be sad, it's the modern day. And apart from being an era that so far seems to be largely defined by the world ending in new and horrific ways seemingly every couple of months, more importantly, it's also the time of original game creators who got tired of the companies they worked for, and also people my age who played the same games I did as a kid and are now old enough to be indie game developers, making their own successors to old games that have been long forgotten by the mainstream gaming industry. A catchy title, I know, I'm sure it will be one that catches on. You have Yooka-Laylee, Bloodstained, Outer Worlds, Pizza Tower, Ballistic NG, and finally, released August 18th, Bomb Rush Cyberfunk, the sequel to Jet Set Radio Future that I have been dreaming of for 2 decades. But I also don't just want to talk about Bomb Rush in the context of Jet Set Radio, although I will a lot in this video due to its very clear and obvious inspirations. I also want to stress that Bomb Rush is so much more than just being a Jet Set Radio clone here. It iterates on those games, bringing in its own ideas, its own unique gameplay mechanics, and really has a flavour all of its own. It is everything I wanted it to be and so much more. Bomb Rush Cyberfunk is the best game I've played all year. Developed by Team Reptile, the same team behind Lethal League, Bomb Rush Cyberfunk takes you to the futuristic streets of New Amsterdam, a city with a militarized police force that would make America's army blush, and into the shoes of Red, a graffiti writer who gets decapitated in the first 10 minutes of the game. joining the Bomb Rush crew with the intent to take over the 5 boroughs owned by other writers, going all city, and hopefully finding his old head in the process. So the story definitely takes cues from Jet Set Radio, with the overarching story of street gangs competing for territory with graffiti, but it's everything else that Team Reptile added that really made me love this game's story. The mysteries surrounding Red's previous identity, the psychedelic dream sequences opening the floodgates for all sorts of crazy out there level designs that are a joy to play through, all the different gangs you face and the way all of their stories interact with yours. It elevates it way above the very simple stories of Jet Set Radio, and had me invested the entire way through, never quite knowing where it will go next. The different boroughs you get to explore all have their own unique colour palettes and atmosphere, from the striking contrast of the shadows cast by the Millennium Square, to the sickly green hues of Brink Terminal and the warm glow of Versum Hill. They're all really memorable areas. I love the aesthetics of them all, not quite going full dystopian like Jet Set Radio Future, where stacks upon stacks of houses were piled on top of each other with walkways of scaffolding hundreds of feet in the air for people to live on. But with the subject matter of the story, the crazy police officers, the energy conveyed by the music tracks, it definitely channels a bit of that dystopian energy still, to give the whole game a bit of an edge. The character designs are also all really memorable, from Red's iconic cyber head and his outfit reminiscent of Yo-Yo's from Future, the policewoman Irene with her big fuck-off jetpack, Escher and his incredibly silly but kick-ass 40-foot long sniper rifle. The artists absolutely hit it out of the park with every single design, and they're all brought to life beautifully with their vibrant 3D models and excellent animation work. Having the option to break down dancing whenever you want has gotta be a top 10 decision of all time in gaming, and making it so dancing is how you initiate changing a character or hail a taxi is easily a top 3. The game is absolutely gorgeous then, perfectly nailing the art style of Jet Set Radio, and as you might expect, the music also fucking slaps. Hideki Naganuma returns and composed 3 songs for the game, all very reminiscent of his work for Sega, one of them even sampling the same speech as the main theme for Jet Set Radio Future, almost acting as a sequel to that song. I love it. They're all amazing, but so is the rest of the soundtrack. I respect Team Reptile's decision to not load up the OST with just Hideki Naganuma likes, as tempting as I imagine that would be, creating a soundtrack that perfectly suits the vibe of Jet Set Radio but isn't derivative of it. Just like how Future's soundtrack was very different from the first games, but still perfectly matched the series and what the new game did, so does Bomb Rush Cyberfunk's. Get Enough by Hideki Naganuma, Anime Break by Klaus Wien, and Next to Me by Leopard Da Vinci and Louis 707 are absolute highlights for me. Take a quick listen. Okay, so that's all amazing then, but did Team Reptile's incredible attention to detail pass over into the gameplay? Abso-fucking-lutely. They basically took Jet Set Radio Future and added a Tony Hawk's combo system to it. It is basically digital crack cocaine to me. The controls are a lot tighter than Jet Set Radio. A lot of the uncontrollable floatiness those games had, especially at low speeds, has been reduced massively, making you feel perfectly in control at all times, especially with the frankly insane amount of new tech this game lets you pull off. Many of these new abilities are completely optional, you won't need even half of them to beat the game, and some of them aren't even mentioned in game at all, but are just left there for you to discover. Air dashes, slides and manuals, wall rides, boosts, boost tricks, high jumps, boost slides, corner boosting. It's it's incredible how much you have at your disposal here, and they become absolutely essential for some of the hardest achievements this game has to offer, using all of them to the fullest to pull off the insanely long combos required. The combo system, by the way, is awesome. A massive improvement over Jet Set Radio, which didn't have one, really. I mean, Future almost did. It at least had challenges to get a certain amount of points. But it's not really what that game was about. Landing on anything, even another rail, ends your combo, and some rails give way more points than the others, basically just for that high score challenge. So that's all it ever was. Finding the point rail, and then doing as many tricks on it before you touch the ground again. Very simple and basic. A bit naff, really, but again, because it's not really what the game was about, it's like, whatever. Bomb Rush completely changes that, with a combo system similar to Tony Hawk's, but instead of increasing the multiplier with every trick you pull off, it increases with... Okay, so if there's a sharp corner on a grind, if you lean into it, you get a speed boost. So every new corner boost like that you hit in a combo, as well as every new wall ride you hit and new ramp you jump off of, they all increase your multiplier. And it is so fucking fun. Not only is the corner boost satisfying to pull off, but it means you really have to push yourself to get those high scores. Not only having excellent control over your character to keep the combo going, and remembering to still do it as stylishly as possible to get your score up, but also knowing the map well enough to know where all the best spots to hit for the multipliers are, forcing you to constantly push yourself more and more to spread out across the entire map. You can't just stay cooped up in one corner of the map doing the easiest loop you can. Well, I guess technically you could, it would just, 15 million points is gonna take you like several hours at least. Even with all of the combo boosts I could get, these combos were still like 10-15 minutes long. It is crazy. You have to actively take risks to get your score up, and it just doesn't get boring. It's why I don't really get the complaints from some players about the lack of tricks to pull off. Like, sure, it would be nice to have other tricks to perform from a visual perspective, but the gameplay here doesn't revolve about what tricks you perform. It's more about how many you perform, and the movement required to get that multiplier up. The lack of tricks isn't a detriment to the game, it doesn't hold the game back. The system it has is perfect for what it's trying to be. So much of my playtime is just doing combos, having a great time just skating around, experimenting with the game's movement system. You can even dismount like in Tony Hawk's Underground and just walk about, which opens up the world to a bit more precise platforming, which is really nice too. It's good to have the option. Of course, I've been speaking so far like rollerblades are the only way to get around, but you can also ride BMX bikes and use skateboards. Though at the core, they're all very similar with only very subtle differences between them all, and like one thing they can do that the others can't. Rollerblades can shatter glass floors when you slide on them, skateboards can trick on fire hydrants to spin them out of the ground, and BMX bikes can enter garages with a BMX icon on them. A little less cool than the others, admittedly. You're welcome, by the way. I just saved you from Googling when you inevitably hit a dead end and can't figure out what to do 8 hours into the game, because the game doesn't tell you any of that. So overall, there is definitely a lot to love about the game, but that isn't to say it's perfect, and there are definitely a few aspects that miss the mark for me. Though that said, I wouldn't say any of these points I'm about to bring up are bad per se, they're just weaker. The weakest for me being the police and combat systems. Not that this is exactly new to Bomb Rush, in Jet Set Radio Future it was a weak point there as well, with basic ass, boring ass combat, boss battles against either annoying big mechs, or against guys who just skate in a circle with way too much health, so you just have to go back and forth collecting more spray cans to get this one guy who, when I say is skating in a circle, I mean a literal, actual circle. Or I guess a rectangle, if you want to be more accurate. Thankfully, at least you don't need to collect spray paint anymore in Bomb Rush. You can just tag things when you hit a spot, which does a lot to streamline the game. Having to collect spray cans did already feel pointless outside of the first game, where it fed into its arcadey nature really well. That first game, incidentally, did the police really well, but there was also very little you could do to deal with them except run away, which was kind of the point. Having the police actually trying to stop you while doing graffiti was really exciting, but something that Future removed, instead closing you off into an arena and only letting you go when you defeat them all. It was kinda lame, to be honest. Bomb Rush attempts to merge the two, and in some ways it does work. It's basically GTA, where the more graffiti you tag, the higher your heat level goes, and the higher your heat level goes, the more police that are rolled out to stop you. And they can be a nuisance. Nowhere near as aggressive as the police in Jet Set Radio, but the turrets with the chains and the helicopters can definitely be a pain. In a good way, like they should be. What I think doesn't click for me is the way the police are deployed. I would have thought the best time to use the police would be at the start of a new area. When you're getting your bearings around a new place, tagging all the new graffiti spots for the first time, you know, the main challenge of each area. Basically like how it was in the first Jet Set Radio, but they're actually disabled here. It's not until you've already tagged a lot of spots, as well as after you've already challenged and beaten the area's gang, when you're just trying to go back and 100% the map, that the police actually come after you. Well, at that point, they're not really an obstacle, they're just annoying. There are actual ways of fighting back against the police now, with melee attacks that are a bit floaty and feeling, but you know, they do the job. But there's no point in actually fighting the police outside of scripted sections, because they just respawn. And if you use a graffiti finisher on them, that just counts as spraying graffiti and your heat level rises anyway. Getting rid of heat doesn't require any skill. It's not about dispatching the police that get sent after you, or even really running away and hiding from them. You just walk into the nearest porta potty, and when you come back out, all your heat's gone. I don't know, I think it's a good idea in theory, just the execution leaves a lot to be desired. Outside of that, the game is also missing a lot of small quality of life things that would definitely go a long way to make the game go more smoothly. A few more tutorials at the start of the game would definitely be appreciated. Right now it just drops you into things and just expects you to figure it out a lot of the time. A character like Roboy in Future, who optionally teaches you the more advanced tech in the game, would also be nice. I don't think it's exactly great game design. I had to use Google to even figure out that there were unique things each move style could perform. Basic stuff as well, like labeling the exits on the map, or the fact the main hideout of the game, your home base, doesn't have anywhere you can change your character is just bizarre. Whoa, yeah, alright, shut up me. Hi. Modern day, too lazy to remove my mic from behind my drawing tablet LEXX here. They fixed this the day after I recorded this. You can now change your character in the hideout. And while I think having music discs in each area so you can unlock the song and play it whenever you want is cool, I think at the very least each area's mixtape, the arrangement of music tracks that play in that area's chapter of the story, should get unlocked, if not when you beat the chapter, but by the end of the game. The post-game is when you go back and try and beat all of the extra challenges, unlock the final characters, and get all of the achievements. Most of my playtime has probably been in the post-game, but inevitably I'm missing most of the game's soundtrack and have no idea where to find all the discs to get it all, and it sucks to be missing out on that. Bomb Rush Cyberfunk has a few rough edges then, but not enough to detract from my time playing it. It was everything I wanted it to be and more, far exceeding my expectations. Like I said earlier, somehow becoming my favourite game I've played this year. In the year that Tears of the Kingdom came out, the sequel to one of my favourite games of all time, in my favourite franchise of all time. Team Reptile absolutely nailed every aspect, creating a game that not only imitates Jet Set Radio, but evolves it while also making it their own. Dare I even say it, I think it probably even surpasses it. I love this game. I was genuinely almost moved to tears several times playing it. Jet Set Radio means so fucking much to me, and finally, after 2 decades of waiting, even if with a different name, I finally got the game I wanted all those years ago. I cannot recommend it enough. For £33, it is absolutely worth it. I genuinely could not be happier.